r/NoSleep. Posted by Reddit user Capable Solid. Rules of being a deep sea explorer. Rule number 1. Don't venture too close to the shipwrecks. The last time I was out in that deep, inky blue void was 2 years ago. Today was the anniversary of that final dive, that last descent into the abyss. John, my diving buddy, who I had known for several years now, was preparing a sub to dive. It was a good size, not huge, but large enough to accommodate up to 4 crew members. The ASP. The sub's captain, Pierre, was an experienced pilot. John had known him for some time now, but I had only recently met him. He seemed like a nice, albeit tense person. He was a replacement captain, as our previous one, Luke Durno, had passed away from a stroke 3 weeks prior. We were ready to launch the sub. Our oxygen tanks and emergency beacon were set, as well as our wetsuits. But Pierre seemed hesitant. "What's holding you up, Pierre? Scared of going down a little further than usual?" "No, it's just, I got a feeling something ain't right," Pierre said, his calm voice subtly breaking. He never got scared about diving. What could get him so nervous? John leapt into the sub's hatch, followed by Pierre and finally me. As John fastened the hatch, Pierre finally started the engine of the sub. The initial descent was like usual, scattered fish and plants, eventually giving way to sandy dunes and sparse rocks. After about 20 minutes, we reached our true starting point, an almost sheer drop-off into the inky black chasm. "Ready?" John said, the slightest tone of nervousness in his voice. "Ready as I'll ever be," I replied. Pierre throttled the descent valves to full, and we started dropping. Pierre toggled on the headlights, and John started towards the camera station. I looked out through the porthole, and was met with nothing but darkness. We hit the bottom of the ocean sooner than I would have thought, and John got to work manning the camera drone. I scoped out the area with the sonar ping, and Pierre messed with the front panels of the sub. Only about a half hour after we touched down, John alerted me to something on the camera screen. At first, it was just another shapeless blob, until John toggled the light. Suddenly, the bow end of a massive ship appeared on the screen. A mostly decayed wreck, it looked like it was a World War II era in design, with a barely legible USS Cantanova plastered along its front side. Excited, I rushed to Pierre to tell him about the find. It was only about 150 feet away from the sub, and our deep sea dive suits were prepped and ready. Reluctantly, he agreed to pilot the sub closer, but no more than 50 feet away from the wreckage. Me and John suited up and locked the main watertight bulkhead. As we exited the sub, total darkness surrounded us, only being pierced by our comparatively dim light beams, emulating from our chest lights. As we approached the Cantanova, Pierre's voice crackled over the radios. "Oi, make sure you don't get stuck in there. I'm not gonna save your asses if you get lost." John turned his radio on. "We'll try not to. Over and out." As we stood at the bow of the ship, something struck me as off. The ship didn't seem to have any damage on the visible side it was leaning on. There could have possibly been damage on the other side. But if I were sunk by a torpedo, wouldn't there be damage on each side? I shuddered at the thought of something colossal dragging this ship down to its depths. We climbed the bow-mounted ladder and reached the deck of the ship. The massive cannons pointed sideways, presumably aimed at enemy warships. But something was wrong. The guns were pointed up, not down. What would a battleship be aiming at with raised guns out here in the open Atlantic waters? I was lost in thought, because John had to snap me out of my blank stare of thought. He had found something that he said demanded my attention. I thought I was seeing things, because I was looking at something that couldn't be real. It had what I presumed to be wings, 4 of them, each one tipped with a large sickle-shaped claw. Its body was large, serpentine in shape, long and sleek. But what caught me most off guard, besides there being massive, unknown beasts hunting around the ocean floor, was its head. It had the shape of a turtle, with an elongated snout, filled with thousands of perfectly straight needle-like teeth. It had 6 large black eyes, and a large mass on the tip of its snout. That's when I realized that this ship was attempting to fight this beast. As I stood in awe, a low rumble shook the deck of the ship. John and I stumbled. As we got to our feet, we saw something moving from within the unknown creature's chest. We stumbled backwards, eventually bumping into the side rails. The chest cavity of the monster burst open, revealing hundreds of crab-like creatures, each about the size of a dog. Large pincer-like jaws snapping at the now exposed skin, with 4 spine-covered legs scuttling about the creature. We wasted no time running towards the ASP, yelling to Pierre to get the sub started. As we continued running, a screech rattled us. Pierre heard it too. It sent shivers down all our spines. As Pierre started the ASP engine, we saw them scrambling towards the sub. Pierre pulled up on the ascending throttle valves, and we shot upwards. A few of the creatures latched onto the sub, but the change in pressure must have killed them, because we heard many pops as we rose up to higher ocean levels. John stared at the cameras pointed downwards, and saw something horrific. That same creature, the one that was thought to have been crushed by the Cantonova, was rising, its chest skin loosely flapping as it chased us upwards, the large head being revealed to be decomposed, exposing the skull and the rotted muscle. It roared a shrill, guttural screech before accelerating towards us. As it sped up, I had the idea of deploying the emergency beacon. I lowered the lever guard and slammed the lever down. A small metal case ejected from the bottom of the craft, the bright red signaling light and high-pitched sound frequency drawing the thing's attention away from us, choosing to chase the beacon rather than the ASP. We broke the surface about a minute later, and after about another 30 minutes, we reached the sub-pen. We scrambled to the floor of the pen and bolted to the shore. As we ran, we collapsed. Pierre threw up, and John was crying. I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. A massive animal, crushed by a warship, ripped open by parasites, still had enough energy to chase after a submarine rising through the ocean. If a nearly decomposed beast could do that, not to mention survive for almost a century on small fish, I would never even imagine what a complete beast could do. Now, 2 years later, I still fear the sea. I haven't returned since. John has a family now, but he came along to visit the pen. Pierre retired, and with him, the ASP. The parasites had done irreparable damage to the bottom of the sub, and after a later inspection, it was a miracle that we made it to the surface, let alone the sub pen. Even though it's been 2 years, when I stand alone at the docks along the ocean, I swear I can still hear that shrill screech, reminding me that however much we want to explore, some things shouldn't ever be discovered.